Hello friends, welcome back. My name is O-Sheena. Today I am sharing enemies to lovers books that I actually like. This is one of my least favorite tropes. I don't tend to like hate to love, enemies to lovers, whatever that trope is where they don't like each other at the beginning. There are some that are the exception, which I'm going to show you now, but for the most part, I want to believe the romance and I want to be able to see like why they would like each other. And a lot of the times when they start out just being so rude and mean to each other, I just can't buy into that kind of relationship, and I can't see how like anyone's feelings would change to the point of like falling in love with them when you start out not liking them. Now it works a little bit better in a fantasy story. So in fantasy, sometimes they truly are enemies because they're on opposite sides or whatever it is, but in contemporary, enemies just usually doesn't work for me, but there are some that I thought were done well. So I'm going to share all of the contemporary and fantasy enemies to lovers books that I really like and that I would recommend. There's only a few fantasy books because I haven't read a ton, and there's only a few that I would actually recommend. So first of all is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I love this book. I have hyped it quite a bit on my channel. I have a whole separate reading vlog for this book, but this is very much enemies to lovers, and more so just enemies. Enemies to tension, to banter, all the things. Very, very good. In this book, the guy is the prince and the girl is competing in these trials, and they get to know each other. She definitely sees through his facade of like smooth talker. She sees right through it, and she gives him a piece of her own medicine. She gives him a taste of his own medicine, and it's great. So yes, this kind of enemies to lovers where the banter is so good. Love it. Okay, another fantasy is Heart of Red, Blood of Blue by Rebecca Belliston. This is such a great enemies to lovers story because the girl is a princess and she's on the run and she ends up getting captured by the enemy side, and the leader of the enemy side is like her captor and like gets to know her, and it's a romance between them. But so many discoveries are made, and it's just like such a good romance because it really is slow burn, and the way that it builds up to them like getting to know each other, getting on the same page. He kind of shows her a piece of his world, and it's just so great. It's so great, and very satisfying ending. Those are the only fantasy books that I'm gonna share. Okay, there will be more. I'm gonna be reading some more fantasy this season, but I have not done that yet to the point where I can recommend. So let's go on to contemporary. I'm gonna start with the like secular fiction. This doesn't have any faith content in it, and then I'll end with the Christian fiction. Okay, the nice thing about some rom-coms is that it'll actually tell you what the trope is. So for example, How to Kiss Your Enemy by Jenny Proctor is one of those books where clearly it's enemies to lovers in this book. And I surprisingly gave this book 5 stars because I loved the progression of their relationship. Even though they were bickering a lot, there was like, I guess you could call it banter, but it was definitely bickering as well. He was still respectful to her. The things that they would like fight over and clash over made sense because they were kind of rivals in their workplace, but they both still helped each other out when they needed help, and I really liked seeing that. And then as they got to know each other and just spent more time together, I just really loved their connection. Seeing how their lives intersected, like she was working on his property and she got to know his family, and it just all came together so well. And I really liked how she like broke out of her shell. They pursued each other just in such a realistic way, but also still super cute. I just overall like really liked this book, and the enemies to lovers part like made it better because the banter led to like all of this tension, and it was actually so good. So I highly recommend. Okay, then also Falling for Your Enemy by Emma St. Clair. This is also clearly an enemies to lovers story, and I also really enjoyed this one. It just worked because it was a forced proximity story, and they definitely were like not sure about each other, but they were still respectful. They would kind of like make fun of each other and laugh, but it was all lighthearted, and it was more so they were very intrigued by each other. And even if they were saying things like, oh, why are you like this or whatever, but on the inside they were like, why are they so cute? And I just really liked seeing that, and it just worked for me. So I would definitely recommend this one as well. This is the end of a series, so you do get a little bit of glimpses of the previous books, but you can read them as standalones. Okay, and then I would recommend What You Wish For by Katherine Center. This is another enemies to lovers that was so deep. So you follow this girl who's a teacher, and then they get a new principal at her school, and he's like definitely hard-laced and stoic and doesn't show a lot of emotion and has all of these rules. And she like really doesn't like him at the start, but then she tries to like break down his walls, and he's so resistant. And it's kind of more like resistance to lovers, not so much enemies, but it's definitely like more so intense than like cute at the beginning. And this one definitely has heavy topics in it related to working in a school, so just look up trigger warnings for this book. But I thought it was done so well, and again, the progression of their relationship, I really believed it was realistic. This one does have a little bit of language in it, but it is Fade to Black. Last for my contemporary fiction, this is historical fiction, but it's To Con a Gentleman by Sarah Adams. This book, it was very funny. Like, this is comedy, okay? But it's funny because, so the two characters, they're kind of conning each other. Like, the girl tries to con him to give her money. She pretends to be pregnant, and he knows that he is not the father, so he like starts to con her back and tries to like see how long she'll go with the facade. And it's really funny. So while she's at his house, they are definitely butting heads, bickering all the time, because he's trying to like make her break, and she's trying to just like get out of this, but she can't because now she's with his family. And it was just very funny. And then as they start to get feelings for each other, it was just so sweet to see that switch of them like thinking they don't like each other, but then realizing that they actually get along really well and have a lot of fun together. So I would really recommend this book. It was very good. So now for the Christian fiction. First of all, I would recommend Lulu's Cafe by T.I. Lowe. This book is very intense, but it definitely has like a really strong message of faith, and basically that you have hope in any like desperate situation. And for this one, the enemies to lovers comes in when this girl is on the run from her abusive husband, and she ends up in this small town. She stops at this cafe, and the owner of it, Lulu, gives her a job, but Lulu's kind of like pseudo grandson is very skeptical of this girl and definitely like questions her motives and like is not won over by her at the beginning. And so that's kind of where the enemies comes in. It's not mega enemies, and he's not rude to her, but he takes a while to come around, and so it's a very slow burn for that reason. But because of that, the way they get to know each other and they start out as friends, it's just so satisfying to see them go from friends to lovers, from hate to friends to lovers. And yeah, I highly recommend this. It's like a hidden gem. It's really good. Okay, then If I Run by Terri Blackstock. This is like literally enemies to lovers, kind of, because basically this girl's on the run from the police, and there's a family that hires a private investigator to find her. And so he's trying to like bust her and get her and come get her arrested and, you know, solve this case. But she knows that she's innocent. So they're going back and forth of like he's chasing her, but then she gets away, and then he gets to know her and sees her character and is like, did she actually do this? And so he's questioning things, and she's like, can I trust him? And it's so great. It's so great. This is a trilogy, so you definitely see like a very slow burn throughout the books of their relationship. This first book is just like the beginnings of it, but very exciting, and I really liked it. And it felt like an enemies to lovers just because they were on opposite sides for a little bit, so it was really satisfying when they finally did come together, and I definitely recommend it. Okay, then I would recommend Unknown Threat by Lynn Blackburn, because in this book you follow a Secret Service agent and an FBI agent, and in this book they do not get along. The FBI and the Secret Service are like kind of annoyed at each other. They just don't get along, but for one of these cases they have to work together. And so the guy is the Secret Service, the girl is the FBI, and they have to work together. He's so skeptical, he doubts her motives, and he feels like he can't trust her. But he's like, oh, she's really cute. Oh, she's actually really smart. Oh, maybe I can trust her. And she's like, he's really cute. Why is he so mad at me? And nothing like annoying happened. It was actually just a slow progression of them like getting to know each other and realizing that they like each other, and it was so great. So highly recommend. It is romantic suspense, but there's more romance than suspense, which I like very much. Okay, and lastly, Then There Was You by Kara Isaac. This one is again very funny. there's just so much like banter and bickering, but in the funniest way. So basically this girl gets a job at a mega church in Australia, and the son of the pastors is also the lead worship leader. And so she gets assigned to like work with him and plan events and stuff, but he doubts her. He's like, I don't feel like I can trust you. Again, the like lack of trust thing. And then she's like, yeah, well, you're just some fancy guy who I don't like either. And she always like does embarrassing things in front of him, and he thinks she's so endearing. And the way that they like get along so well and they become friends, and then again, all of the banter and the bickering, it's very funny, very entertaining, and the romance was so sweet. So definitely highly recommend. I loved this one. So here are all of the books that I had to hold up, and then one that I don't own. But yeah, I do like this trope when it's done well, and these are the books that I think did it well. And I just don't like it when the characters either call each other names, embarrass each other in front of people, are just like rude and vindictive towards each other. I don't find that funny. I don't relate to it. I don't look up to it. That's not the kind of person that I want to be, so I don't like reading about it. So for these books, none of those walked that line. They all were actually very sweet, and it turns out that the characters actually did like each other. They just didn't realize it, and they had to get to know each other, and that was great. So yeah, I'll write all of these books down below, and if you're interested in any other recommendations that I have, I'll link my playlist. It's just called Oceana's Book Recommendations, with all of the videos that I've made recommending books to you. So yeah, and then I would also love to hear your guys' recommendations for this trope. They have to be what I just said though. Like if there's too much like making fun of each other and like being mean, not interested. But if it's kind of like comedic and lighthearted, then I would be interested. So yeah, thank you for watching, you guys. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.